Today we will be discussing the topic of Indian economy, industrial policy. So when we talk about industrial policy, let's understand first the meaning of industry. Basically, industry has played a central role in India's developmental efforts, and industry has enjoyed a special position as the sector that would lead India into a modern world. And obviously, when we talk about industry, it reduces the economic dependence on other countries and generate other income needed to eliminate poverty also. Jawaharlal Nehru laid the foundation of modern India, we all know that. And the goals and objectives set out for the nation by Jawaharlal Nehru first was rapid agricultural and industrial development of our country. Second, the rapid expansion of opportunities for gainful employment. And third is progressive reduction of social and economic disparity. Fourth was removal of poverty and attainment of self-reliance. So we all are working for all these four objectives till date. Now, when we talk about this industrial policy, we have to check the scenario pre and post liberalization that was happened in 1991, we know. So I have written here that industrial policy is a comprehensive document that serves as a roadmap for the industrialization to be achieved in a country by country over a period of time. And industrial policy is expected to contribute towards the realization of some basic goals and objectives like the rapid industrial development of the country, the generation of job opportunities for everyone who is eligible to do the job, then reduction in poverty continuously, and progressive reduction of social and economic disparities amongst various classes of people. That means we are talking about the every strata of the society here. It also provides a glimpse of the government attitude towards the fiscal and monetary policies to be practiced for growth and development. Now moving forward, when we talk about the industrial policy, we have to check that what was the scenario. Here in this slide, you can see the industrial policy which came up in 1948. Actually, there are so many amendments in the industrial policy of 1948, and after that it was amended first in 1956, then 1973, then 77, then 80, and the the new industrial policy at the time of liberalization which came up in 1991 too. So let's begin with this, the industrial policy of 1948. So basically in April 1948, the government of India introduced the first industrial policy resolution, that is also known as IPR, Industrial Policy Resolution, that contemplated a mixed economy comprising private and public sector. We know that India is the mixed economy, and in that the classification of industries was also done, and industries were classified into four categories in this policy. First category was central government would have the sole ownership, control and management on the manufacture of the arms and ammunition, then atomic energy and railways. The second category comprising coal, iron, steel and manufacturers of telephone, telegraphs and wireless machines other than the radio sets. New units in this category of industries would be set up by the government only. Let's move further. Now if we talk about the other two categories, we can see that third category includes industry of basic importance, would be planned and regulated by the state itself, and the industries were salt, automobiles, fertilizers, heavy machineries, all kind of heavy machinery, paper industry, air and sea transport, sugar, chemicals, cement, alcohol and cotton. So they all were included in the third category. And the fourth one, it included all remaining industries which were left to the initiative of private sector. Private sector was free to own, control and manage these industries without the intervention of the state. Now the second point was attitude towards foreign capital. As a rule, joint ventures would be welcomed, but with the dominant role of India capital and management. See what is happening. When we talk about this attitude towards foreign capital, it was started with the objective of accelerating the pace of industrialization. The government recognized the need for the foreign capital and technology, and as a rule, this joint venture would be welcomed. But here, the India was having the dominant role and in terms of capital and in terms of management also. The next is encouragement to village and small scale enterprises. So basically, development of these industries was accorded a high priorities, as these are capable of creating increasing number of job opportunities. And it is better to note here that it would be the constant endeavor of the government to improve the competitiveness of the small scale industries by modernizing the technique of production. Now the next is appropriate tariff policy. So it was considered essential to attain optimum utilization of country's natural resources and to safeguard or nurse Indian industries in their infancy. And to protect these industries from foreign competition, suitable tariff policy would be implemented, and the state would make the required efforts through different type of taxation policy to encourage savings as well as the investment and decentralize wealth of the people. Now the next is industrial relations. Of course, the Industrial Policy Resolution 1948, it laid special emphasis on maintaining cordial industrial relations. And it would work to ensure fair wage rates that time also, proper working conditions and social security to all the workers, because when we talk about the social security and the health of the worker, it is utmost important for all the workers who are working in any of the industry. Now let's move forward. The next point in this, the IPR in 1948, it stressed that efforts would be made to achieve balanced development of industries in different regions, so that the disparities in the growth of different regions would not be allowed to increase. And it was emphasized that time only that only balanced and coordinated development of the industrial and agricultural economy in the each region could ensure the attainment of higher standards of living in the entire country. So it was very important that time. Now moving forward, the next is develop the social infrastructure. Yes, in Industrial Policy Resolution 1948, it was actually, when we talk about this IPR 1948, it made it known that to accelerate industrialization, suitable emphasis would be placed on the expansion and improvement of what? The electricity generation, the transport facility, as you can see on the slide, and the irrigation facilities also. So these are the highlights of IPR 1948. Now let's move to the when this particular policy amended in 1956, which is known as IPR 1956. So it was the 1948 IPR was revised with the launch of second 5-year plan in 1956, and the basic objective of this IPR was to accelerate the overall rate of economic growth by raising the pace of industrialization as a means of achieving socialist pattern of the society. Now, when we talk talk about the, this IPR 1956, I would like to mention here some of the objectives of 1956 before the provisions of this. So, when we talk about the objectives, the first objective of 1956 IPR was to accelerate the rate of economic growth, and the next objective we can mention here, to expand the public sector, develop heavy and machine making industry, then to increase the employment opportunities in every industry so that more and more people in the Indian economy get the employment as per their eligibility. Then to prevent the creation of the monopolies. Yes, it was very important that time because income inequality was the big problem. And to build up a large and growing private sector also, because India was moving towards the mixed economy continuously, and to expand the cottage, village and small scale industries, because this particular industry was continuously contributing in the GDP rate, and it is continuously growing and giving lots of economic and employment opportunity to the government. And yes, to mention here, we can also say that one of the objective of IPR 1956 was to achieve balanced industrial development also. So when we talk about now let's discuss the provisions of this 1956 IPR. So first provision was the reclassification of industry. Earlier, in 1948, we saw that four parts we have seen. Here, industries were regrouped into the three categories by broadening the role of the state. So, state role was, becoming bigger at this particular moment when IPR 1956 launched. So, here we can see, the industries were regrouped in three categories. So, when we talk about the Schedule A, it is included a group of 17 industries you can see here. So which are including arms and ammunition, atomic energy, iron and steel, heavy casting and forging of iron and steel, heavy machinery for iron and steel production, mining iron ore, and other important minerals like copper, lead and zinc, aircraft, air transport, railways, shipbuilding, telephone, telegraph, and wireless equipment, generation and distribution of electricity, as you can see on this slide also. So these all were placed under the exclusive responsibility by the state itself. Now let's move forward. The Schedule B, if you talk about, it would include 12 industries which were to be owned progressively by the state again. And new enterprise in this particular category would be set up by the state. But yes, please note, private sector could supplement the effort of the state. This category comprised mining industries, aluminium and non-ferrous metal, plus machine tools also. Chemical industries were in Schedule B, and synthetic rubber, etc. Then let's talk about the Schedule C. All the remaining industries were placed in Schedule C, and further development of these industries was left to the initiatives and efforts of the private sector. Industries of Schedule C, we can say, that would be subject to Development and Regulation Act, that is general supervision of the government. Now the second point, if you see here, I have mentioned the second provision, that is fair treatment for the private sector. Now what was happening, what is the amendment basically? To reap the harvest of mixed economic system, that means to enjoy the best of both the worlds. It was imperative for the state to facilitate and encourage the development of the industries in the private sector, and the state would make sincere efforts to develop power, transport and other services through fiscal and other measures to boost the development of the industries. The second provision which I mentioned here, that is cottage and small scale industries. Yes, when we talk about these industries, taking cognizance of the problem of large scale unemployment and the resultant poverty, a comprehensive role was assigned to the cottage and small scale industries that time. And the promotion of cottage and small scale industries would go a long way in solving the problems of unemployment too, because government was emphasizing the growth of these industries at that time, and it would help to achieve balanced regional growth also. Now the third provision was development of backward regions. The policy resolution that time focused on the need of simultaneous growth of agriculture and industrial regions of the economy, and backward regions of the country were to be developed on priority basis in the context of industrialization of the country. Now the next provision when we talk about it is the fourth one, that is attitude towards the foreign capital. Now when we talk about the resolution made it clear in the unequivocal terms that the foreign capital was welcome for the development of the industries. However, as a rule, the major share in the ownership and effective control should always remain in Indian hands. So that was important in this IPR 1956. Now the next provision is Industrial Training Institute, as you can see on this slide. So basically to ensure unhindered supply, of trained labor force in order to achieve high productivity levels. So it was decided that ITIs, ITIs, the Industrial Training Institutes, would be set up in different parts of the country. So these were the provisions. Now let's move further. Here I would like to discuss the industrial policy, situation on the eve of new economic policy. That means we are talking about here 1991. But before that, I would like to add, the industrial policy 1980 also, because when we were moving towards the liberalization and privatization, the 1980 industrial policy, it was, promoting the competition in the domestic market that time, and technological upgradation and modernization was also there. We were encouraging lots of foreign investment in high technological areas, and we were into the maximum production in every industry, and to strengthen the agricultural base by giving priority to agro-based industries, we were continuously working. And there was one more point I would like to mention before this new economic policy 1991 came up. We were also highlighting in 1980 the consumer protection against the high prices and bad quality goods. So we have, in 1980 policy, we have laid the foundation already for the new economic policy 1991. So yes, I have mentioned here in this particular slide the situation on the eve of new economic policy. So what I want to say, the 3 decades from 1960 to 1990 of planned economic development were marked with the stagnation of industrial development. And large number of public sector enterprises, which are known as PSEs also, they had been set up where productivity was low and cost was high. So capacity utilization was extremely low in the strategic industries, and for the private sector industries, licensing practices and comprehensive regulatory system were adversely affecting the entrepreneurial growth, productivity and the quality of production. And absence of competition and lack of upgradation of technology was responsible for the, this sorry plight of Indian industries that time. And CAD was becoming untenable, and foreign exchange reserves had touched the rock bottom. So, situation was not very bright and good that time. And under these circumstances, the year 1991 heralded a new era in the industrial policy of India. So this was the situation. And then the new policy, the new industrial policy 1991 came up with the certain objectives already. So let's, before discussing the objectives, basically I would like to tell you something about the new industrial policy. It was basically announced in two parts. The first part was announced on 24th July 1991, and it concerned the large industries, including the medium size industries also. And the second part was announced on 6th August 1991, just 15 days after, in fact 10 days, and it was concerned with the small industries. So the overall objective of New Industrial Policy 1991 is to achieve a sort of development which makes industries dynamic in their growth, and which renders justice to the people. And it also implies building a society wherein India grows as a part of the world economy and not in the isolation. So this was the major objective, and after that it has laid these objectives also, like I have mentioned in the slide. That is, first objective is utilizing fully the indigenous capability of the entrepreneurs, then fostering R&D efforts from the development of indigenous technologies. Nowadays also we are talking about this Atmanirbhar Bharat. So we have set the foundation that time. And then the next is raising investment, then improvement in efficiency and productivity, then controlling monopolistic behavior, then assigning the right areas for public sector undertakings. And the next one is number 7. You can see this is ensuring skills and facilities to the workers to enable them to deal with the inevitability of technological changes. Then the last is with respect to the external sector. The policy continues to pursue the goal of self-reliance, and it places, greater emphasis on building up of our ability to pay for our imports through our own foreign exchange earnings. Now the features of new economic policies. The first feature I have mentioned here, the abolition of industrial licensing. Yes, so it abolished industrial licensing for all, but the 18 industries, these industries for which licensing was kept necessary were coal and ignite, then petroleum and its distillation products, then distillation and brewing of alcoholic drinks, then sugar, animal fats and oils, cigars and cigarettes, and asbestos and asbestos based all products were there, then plywood and other wood based products also, then raw hides and skins of leather, and leather, and tanned or dressed fur skins, motor cars, paper and newsprint, electronic, aerospace and defense equipments, industrial explosive and hazardous chemicals, drugs and pharmaceuticals, entertainment electronics, and white goods, like domestic washing machine, etc., etc. So with the passage of time, most of these industries have also been delicensed, but that time it was there. And as of now, licensing is compulsory for only 5 industries. These are alcohol, cigarette, hazardous chemicals, electronics, aerospace and defense equipment, and industrial explosives, as you can see in my slide. Now let's move further. When we talk about the second this point, the object, this particular when feature, this is the lesser role of the public sector. Now in 1956, resolution had reserved 17 industries for the public sector, but in 1991 industrial policy reduced this number to 8 from 17. Then what are these 8? First is arms and ammunition, second is atomic energy, third is coal and ignite, fourth is mineral oil, then fifth is mining of iron ore, then mining of iron ore, manganese ore, gypsum, sulfur, gold, diamond, then mining of copper, lead, zinc, tin, then minerals specified in the schedule of atomic energy order 1953. I'm sorry, this order I cannot discuss here, but you can refer that. And then the rail transport also. Now moving forward, when we talk about this, we have to say also that, on May 9th, 2001, the government opened up arms and ammunition sector also, for the private sector. And this now leaves only 3 industries exclusively for the public sector. First is atomic energy, then minerals specified in the schedule to the atomic energy, and then the rail transport. So only 3 industries nowadays we are having which are exclusively for the public sector only. Now the next feature when we talk about that is MRTP limit scrapped. So what is MRTP? Monopolistic and restrictive trade practices. So MRTP Act we have. So under this Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act, all the firms with assets, above a certain size, which you can say rupees 100 crore, since 1985 it was the size, was they were classified as MRTP firms. And such firms were permitted to enter selected industry only. And this also on a case by case approval basis. So the new industrial policy scrapped the threshold limit of assets in respect of MRTP and dominant undertakings, and these firms will now be at par with others and not require any prior approval from the government for investment in the delicensed industries. Now the next I have written here, the free entry of foreign investment and technology. Yes, so foreign investment and technology have always been regulated in India. In the case of both foreign technology agreements sought by Indian firms as well as foreign investment, it was necessary to obtain specific prior approval from the government for each product. So what we have to note here, the prior approval is required. And the new industrial policy prepared a specified list of high technology and high investment priority industries, wherein automatic permission was to be made available for foreign direct investment up to 51% of the foreign equity. And the industries in which automatic approval was granted, including a wide range of industrial activities in the capital goods and metallurgical industries, also electronics and food processing, and the service sectors also having significant export potential. So these all are included in that. Now let's move forward. The limit was subsequently raised from 51% to 74%, and then 100% of many of these industries. Now the limit of this foreign investment is open up to 100%. So presently FDI is permitted up to 100% on the automatic route in most of the sectors. We have to note this, that FDI is permitted up to 100% on the automatic route in the most sectors, subject to sectoral rules and regulations wherever it is applicable. And FDI is prohibited only in the mentioned sector which I have mentioned here, like retail trading, except single brand product retailing. So you can recall the case of Walmart here. Then the atomic energy, then lottery business, then the gambling and betting, of course. So these are the sectors which are, prohibited for this. FDI, we cannot have FDI. Now the next is promoting small scale industries. So when we talk about the new industrial policy for the small scale industries, this policy was announced on 6th August 1991. And the most important features, if we need to discuss about this policy, the first feature is the new policy provides for the supply of raw materials and marketing facilities to all these small scale industry units. And as for marketing, the policy envisages the market promotion of their products to be undertaken by cooperatives, public sector institutions, and other professional agencies, as mentioned. The second is widening and deepening the complementarity in the production programs of large, medium, and small sectors. And this will be ensured through production of, parts, components by the small ancillary units, which are playing a very crucial role and which are required by the large public and private industries. The third is the investment limit in any plant and machinery in a unit has been raised from 5 lakh to rupees 25 lakh to provide for the increase in the price of capital goods. And the next is special measures have been taken for handloom, handicrafts, khadi and village industries. Now let's move forward. Here, okay, now we have to discuss the positive impacts of this new industrial policy in 1991. And okay, so when we talk about this positive impact, I have mentioned here increased production. So yes, foreign investment and foreign technology agreements are designed to attract what? Capital, technology and managerial expertise from abroad. And yes, this inflow of foreign investment and better technology will help us to raise the production. So these resources will be more effectively allocated so that the industrial production will be increasing continuously. Now the second positive impact, if we talk about, that is increase the competition. When we talk about competition, we can say that, easy entry of multinational companies and removal of asset limit on MRTP companies, liberal licensing will increase competition in our economy. And we are, also permitting the 100% FDI in so many sectors. So competition will result in more efficiency, better quality of products and of course the lower prices. The next impact which I have mentioned here is increased efficiency of public sector. Here I would like to add that the reduction in the number of the industries reserved for especially public sector from 17 to 3, and the threat of closure of sick public sector enterprises would result in the rise in their efficiency. So measures like professional management and greater autonomy are expected to improve the performance of public sector units, of course. Now, before moving to the before ending my presentation, I would like to quote also the evaluation part of this industrial policy when we are discussing it. So we have discussed so many positive impacts, but when we are evaluating this industrial policy, we should not forget that if you are discussing the positive things, there are some limitations or negative points of this policy as well. So I would like to quote here that this policy is a total departure from Nehru's model of socialism. Number one, we have to keep this. We can criticize it, yes. And it will lead to domination of MNCs on the Indian economy. And the threat from the foreign competition due to the cheaper imports and inability to meet the challenges from MNCs due to their weak economic strength vis-a-vis the multinational companies. We can also say that. And I would like to also say that CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry, they did raise the point that we have moved away from too much protectionism to too little protectionism. And trade unions, they oppose the policy also due to the fear of unemployment, which may arise due to the lots of privatization in the industries, and monopolies and concentration of economic power in a few hands is likely to increase all of a sudden. And distortion in the industrial pattern would occur due to slow pace of investment in few basic and strategic industries, yes. And I would like to quote also that absence of a mechanism would slow down the development of backward areas, and government is silent about tackling the growing industrial sickness, which was quite evident in so many industries. And the government has not announced a clear exit policy for these sick units also. So that's all about the industrial policy. I hope that you all have understood what the industrial policy, how many industrial policies we have since 1948. So thank you so much. And I will again meet you with the new lectures on Indian economy. So thank you guys.